Hi, guys.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks, Brent.
You were great. Super good.
All right, guys, we're gonna get rolling. Call this meeting of the Capital Program Committee to order October
Okay.
19th, a little bit after 1 p.m. Do we have any members online?
It's like Brooke is waiting to.
Brooke.
I'm here.
Hi, Brooke. So all members present, with the exception of Barry, we'll see if he rolls in on Zoom or otherwise. This meeting is being audio video recorded. Anything say or display will be shown on Zoom. Please be cognizant of that. Get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Let's see, we'll do a roll call since we've got hybrid. Christie,
Hi.
Peter,
Hi.
Howard,
Hi.
Jill,
Hi.
and Brooke.
Hi.
Great, thanks, everyone.
No, Barry.
No members of the public. Noah, are you auditing or are you here to speak as a member of the public or as the airport director?
I'm not planning to speak per the agenda.
Okay, great. I just want to dispense with number 4, public comment. We are going to have whatever discussion we may and a vote on the seasonal employee housing supplemental funding request for special town meeting. Did I see Greg? I thought I saw
He
Greg.
did, yeah, it's on there somewhere. He might have got bumped out past the
Right.
screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
Greg, if you're here, could you please make it known and we'll have you do a quick run through summary and then we can do our vote.
I am in fact here.
Oh, excellent. Thanks. You've got the floor. If you could just re-summarize and we've got on the agenda for a vote, we'll vote it.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up here because I'm having a hard time with the Zoom.
Sure. Seasonal employee housing supplemental funding request for special town meeting. Can we just peg the dollar amount? I think that's-
Honestly, okay, let me just check.
I can pull it up.
I don't even have that one on my list to discuss today. I'm sorry. I don't even know much about that one, unless Sue knows something about it. I'm sorry, I'm just calling everything up right now.
Greg, we discussed it at last week's meeting.
Yep,
Libby, and this was just for the committee to take the vote this week.
but was Libby supposed to be getting additional funding information,
No.
correct?
I don't
Guys,
believe so.
I just want to jump in. That's kind of my role here is, this was for only the supplemental funding. No additional information was required. We just did not have it specifically listed as a vote on the agenda. The, request we were looking for, supplemental information for is the dormitory, the 8 structures that may not include dormitories.
And you know, Sue sent us designs for.
On that, yeah, but separate discussion item. So Greg, do you have anything on that, or should we just pull up the
You know what?
request?
Honestly, yeah, you just pull it up because I wasn't even given any additional information from Libby or Rick. I'm sorry about that. I was not prepared for that one.
Well,
You
it's-
guys, I thought this request was pulled. That's what I heard. Was that
No.
not true?
For town? For airport. yes.
Airport, let's back up a second. Airport has pulled the request in the sense that it is being combined or will be advanced
Right.
along with its request for annual town meeting. Similar information was required, and the airport commission apparently made a determination that it made sense just to package those up in terms of a presentation, both in front of capital program, finance, and town meeting. We're talking about specifically seasonal employee housing, supplemental funding needed to the original 8.5 million appropriation. Actually, no, I got this backwards. That's the $11 million one. Is the special town meeting request in under town admin?
I think it was. Give me a minute. I wasn't prepared to bring it up either. So let me see if I can find it.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, I believe I created a fiscal 24 column for it when we discussed it last week, but let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay, yeah, and if you could throw us the alphanumeric, if you find it, that'd be great.
Is it 20-004? Seasonal employee housing supplemental funding?
No, that's the one I mistakenly pulled up. That's the $11 million ask.
Is that the Tacoma Way housing?
No. That one is, but not the one we're talking about today.
Mr. Chair, is the finance director, Brian, through the finance director, Brian, is this the additional funding for Vertex? And-
Greg, he's not present.
He's not present. I'm sorry about that. I thought I saw him earlier. I was having trouble getting on.
You,
All right, can I make it, well, we'll give it another 30 seconds.
So this, I'm sorry, this isn't admin 20-004?
I think it is, because that's what my notes have for it's Article 12. Town
Ed-
employee
Yes,
housing.
it's admin 20-004. I'm having a bit of computer issues myself, so I can't share the
8.5
screen.
was appropriated.
Right.
It was originally dorm style housing. It could be, and it was recast. And it could be turned into permanent housing if we need to.
Right, they're mostly dormitory and then some apartments in it now, still a single structure, I believe.
Yeah, and that actually, so that is what I pulled up, but for some reason I was thinking that.
Maybe
that
you got
was-
confused,
So
but
the
now
only
that's gonna-
issue was not,
The dollar amount is similar to
It's
the
also
11
for
million.
this
we
one.
were prepared to vote, but it wasn't on the
Right.
agenda,
Agenda,
so
that
this
was-
was just simply
yeah.
a vote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to do for the record that, you know, we're not just voting money, that this is, I wanted to have the introduction read. Now we know what it is. I'll read it. Supplemental funding needed to original $8.5 million appropriation. Construction costs for seasonal housing dormitory, including design, OPM, and construction costs. Design based on Great Harbor Yacht Club dormitories. Expectation that roughly 35 to 40 staff could be housed. It may be more. $300,000 appropriated in FY20 for feasibility study. $8.5 million for construction appropriated in FY23. Estimated cost of the project is now over $11 million. That is obviously due to inflationary pressures. And that's what we reviewed at the last meeting. And now we are going to take a vote to determine if we're going to make a recommendation to select board and through them, the finance committee on advancing this for special town meeting. So do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
And it's a positive motion. Peter, on your motion,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Jill,
aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Brooke.
Aye.
Okay, good. And is Barry here? No, I just can't see everyone on the. Okay, and I'm an aye. So that's dispensed with. Thank you, everyone. We got to get this stuff buttoned down. We are moving on to DPW transportation. And Mike, I think you're primarily going to have the floor, but you and Greg can wrestle over it. Oh, and Drew.
And DPW director, Drew Patno.
Hi guys, how we doing?
Yeah.
She's already in there, so I'm like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even see it.
So, Mr. Chair, how would you like, do you want us to go down through, just in order, each FY25 request?
Yeah, and now that I see Drew there, I mean, I just want to say, welcome. Your first time here, I think, in front of the Capital Program Committee. Glad to have you aboard, and we'll go easy on you the first round.
Great,
Well, he's already
thank
had
you.
the first round.
We beat him up this morning.
Okay. Greg, yeah, if you want to introduce them and then go from there, and we'll just pick up a rhythm. What I'd like to do, guys, is just pause in between requests. If there's any topical questions, we can process them and move on.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you have a list of the proposed FY25 and out year capital projects for DPW transportation. There are several ongoing and new projects. We met as a group earlier this week, mostly through email, to address most of these. So there are a few of us on here for different specific ones, so I'm gonna punt it to the DPW director in order to start with the sidewalk improvement plan, which is an ongoing project. And then we'll just go down each one.
Great.
With Drew?
Great. Thanks, Greg. Nice to meet all you guys. Excited to be here. Thanks for taking it easy on me. So we'll just start at the top. So the sidewalk improvement plan, I think it's noted that it's part of the select board strategic plan. Ultimately, the goal is to have this recurring, phased approach to improving sidewalks, not just in the core districts, but island wide and in strategic and important corridors. Obviously, the initial focus is kind of down in that core district downtown. So I think the intent is that every year this money would be appropriated, and we're working with consultants to kind of strategize and prioritize certain areas and start knocking down the first couple dominoes to get us to where we want to be as a community.
Great, thanks, Drew. Questions from anyone?
We brought up this morning about that LiDAR conversation and top of Main Street, and this does not include that.
Correct, but it is a companion in the sense that the LiDAR will inform it. Is that the information you received?
Well, we didn't receive that, but that's in fact what's supposed to happen.
Okay, great. And then if no one else, I just Christy, go ahead.
Drew, I just was obviously after our meeting, just thought about a few things for this and some others, but on this one, just what is the reasoning for having a consultant let you guys know what you need to do? It would seem like it's clear. I mean, DPW is there's no one more involved in sidewalk work that I'm wondering why we're spending any money to pay for someone when I would think that the department would be the best equipped to determine what is priority.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately it is up to us to decide and prioritize, but we need that information. And that's there was a contract with Beta Group, and that was really to develop a dashboard and do all of the data collection. That's something that just takes too much far more resources than we would have in terms of like collecting all the existing conditions, sidewalk and curbing type and things like that. They've created a dashboard so we can go in and get whatever information we need about different areas. They also kind of like give it an initial rating or score. We did recently sign an amendment to have them put dollars to that. But from there, we should be able to kind of run with it. The sidewalks aren't really moving or changing other than aging or deteriorating. So that's something we'll be able to stay on top of. But bringing the consultant on board was really to get that mass data collection as a jumping off point to know where we're starting and then work to implement and start making these corrective actions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
We did ask about what the
Howard.
likelihood of the balance would be to carry over, and it's going to be 0 for this.
Okay, that answers one of my questions. Thank you. Okay, so I'll go, I guess, Drew. So consultant's going to be like asset management, inventory, all those particulars, and then indexing the existing quality so it can be prioritized.
Yeah, additionally added this budget would be construction oversight, and checking on the quality of work and quantities and invoicing and stuff like that. Just having someone that can watch. Essentially, this is all done through the annual roadworks contract with Victor Brandon. So having someone there to make sure that the outcome is what we're intending and that we're getting what we pay for.
Okay. And Drew, do you foresee that we're going to need, basically like a project manager that's outside the town in perpetuity on this? Or is this something that we're going to be able to begin to absorb fairly rapidly into your labor resources, or you just don't have the capacity?
If we're successful in hiring a town engineer and or project manager, then that's something we can certainly do in-house. Frankly, globally speaking, it's not a huge dollar value. It's not a big percentage, the consulting side of this, but we do use some of the budget for the engineering and oversight.
Sure. No, I get it. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch base on, I know that previous administration was filling in the fire cisterns. We've gotten into stormwater management. There's now that basically a department running. Is stormwater involved when you guys are, two questions. One, will the consultant any work be done to identify the likelihood, obviously a fire system, you can see the inlet, you can identify. But is there gonna be any work to try and identify these if they're somewhat hidden? And number one, and number two, is stormwater getting involved to assess the efficacy of keeping them, perhaps in an upgraded situation? Because otherwise we're eliminating places for stormwater runoff to be collected.
As far as the sidewalks are concerned?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly keep drainage and stuff in mind. This is really to improve the sidewalks that currently exist, so really shouldn't be changing too much, other than potentially getting rid of areas where water's collecting when it shouldn't, on sidewalks, or, which again becomes a big issue, when it freezes or when it snows. We also, a big focus of this is trying to make sidewalks more accessible when we can. Obviously we're kind of caught between the past and the present when it comes to historic preservation and trees and things like that. So it can be a tricky situation, but we're certainly trying to manage as best we can to kind of check as many boxes when we do this work. But as far as the fire cisterns, there is an item about halfway down the list for decommissioning fire cisterns.
Yeah, and actually I would just follow up on that. So I get the scope. I appreciate your, fleshing that out for us. I'm referring to fire cisterns being identified when you're relaying the sidewalks. I believe that what Rob was doing was trying to dovetail to the extent possible sidewalk replacement with fire cistern fill-ins, so that if you had the sidewalk up, you would fill it in. And my concern is that decommissioning those is depleting not historic in the sense of the HDC, but historic in the sense of stormwater runoff relief. We're filling in these drain pools that we're not necessarily replacing. And if it's on the historic streets, it's typically going to drain into the harbor. So I'm just trying to make sure that there's a connection there. If there isn't a connection, I'm not asking for a big thing on it. I think that that's part of what needs to be looked at. And I wanted to see if that was on your radar.
Okay. Sure. Certainly is now.
There's a connection to sidewalks or to
The fire cisterns are under the sidewalks.
So it's
Put those two together a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
A little
what.
coordination.
Yeah, so trying to coordinate those, so we're not actually just filling them in if they're in. And the reason I brought up the stormwater runoff department, forgive me, I just drawn a blank. It's a new department. What are we calling that, Greg?
The stormwater division of,
Okay, so stormwater. Yeah, so I mean, just so that, there's a little bit of interconnected thought, that's all.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on that one?
We did, in our meeting, sidewalk improvement plan does sometimes carry a balance far more than some of the others. I think the current balance in the account is $676. And a lot of it comes down to resources, having people to do it at certain times of the year. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
And can you clarify, Drew, that 6 will be in addition to the 1.2, but for fiscal year 25, that will be expended?
Yeah, that's the plan.
The plan, yeah, I mean,
right. I mean, and that does bring up a more global conversation. Again, we touched on it this morning. Not only town resources, but through a sole contractor to do all this work, we need to be realistic about how much we're going to be able to get done. And so we've had a number of conversations about that. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's certainly more complicated than just pulling up some brick and putting it back down smoother than you found it. So our goal is to expend all of it. I know Victor's doing work at the airport. He's got capital projects, and then we expect him to do cobblestone sidewalk paving, things like that. He shuts down paving operations in the winter, and then obviously it's tough to do in the summer. Or a lot of this can be difficult to do in the summer, but even in the shoulder season, sidewalk work downtown, it impacts businesses. So yeah, there's a lot of coordination that goes into making it successful. We certainly expect to expend all of it.
Yep. Any other thoughts or comments at this point? Okay, Drew, go ahead, move on, please.
Yeah, so the next one was the island-wide road improvements. So like I was just saying, an annual program to do road work, largely paving, to maintain and improve our network of roads, public roads for that matter. And again, the previous, excuse me, the previous approved capital was, excuse me, for fiscal year 24 was 2 million. We're looking for 3 million, in hopes that we can do a better job than we essentially have been doing. A study by Beta Group had been done every couple of years to assess the roads and their quality. By tracking that data, we can know where we stand and ultimately where we're headed and what level of investment we need. As part of that, they basically made a recommendation that we would be spending $8 to $13 million a year on paving, which again, going back to the conversation about what's realistic, right? Not only from a dollars and cents standpoint, but how much can we get done in a year? And obviously with that number would be unrealistic, but that was their recommendation in terms of what our approach should be in terms of keeping the roads essentially in the condition they are, island wide, going forward. But with that being said, the $3 million ask would also not just be overlay pavement and milling overlay, but other types of treatment, fog sealing, crack sealing, chip seal. There's other things we can do to make our dollars go further, essentially. So that's our plan moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments, Christy?
Just a comment and then a question. It did come up in our little meeting. The balance carryover from 2023 was about 30 grand, which out of a 2 million, really good. Shows that their resources are reliable and they're getting everything done. So I think that alone kind of speaks for that additional $3 million request bump up. And then I did have a question, Drew. I know we were talking about Victor's capacity, but I was wondering if you had more money, would he be available can he do more, or is he maxed out, or are we just maxed out with our allocation?
It's hard to speak to that, but I think that going from 2 million to 3 million, we might get our answer. I also understand that, yeah, he's got other projects going on. So it depends on what's happening at the airport, what's happening with sewer and water projects, and even private work. So it's a little tough to speak to that, but excuse me. To make a bad joke, if Victor keeps raising his prices, we're going to have no problem spending the money.
Yeah.
More importantly, we want to get more done, not just spend the money.
And Mr. Chair, if I could interject a little bit.
Great, go ahead, and then Christy.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the hand raised. I should be more formal. Our strategic plan manager of strategic plans, Chuck Larson, is putting together a capacity study for the similar reason. Like, even if we have the money, is there enough asphalt? Is there enough actual resources that can be done for all the projects that are being planned? And he's trying to coordinate with the schools and land bank and others that may be utilizing Victor, or at least asphalt, and to see what's realistic over the next 5 years. Just put in the background that we are looking into just that, as Christy was asking.
Well,
Okay, thanks, Greg, appreciate it. Brooke?
I don't have a question on this, but I am trying to join the Zoom from my laptop because I've arrived at where I need. So if you could let me in and then I'll go off my phone.
You're in. Or you should be in. Okay, Christie?
Yeah, Greg, I appreciate that. I just was thinking, from what I understand,
Thank you.
The rates for paving just go up annually. And so, was just trying to see if we could do more in a year. I mean, just to maybe preserve some funds, but, yeah, so what was my other question? I can't remember. So go on.
No, that's cool. Anyone else?
Yeah.
It'll come to you. So Drew, I'm not concerned, but it could become a concern is, I believe the last study, I think it was Beta, they did 2019 and developed like a backlog list, a cost benefit list, kind of a criticality list. And that was a 5-year plan, and we're getting towards the end of the 5-year plan. We're not in the 5th year, but is there money set aside within this $3 million ask for an update to the study? So we're planning the next 5 years and we have the information to do that timely, or instead, are you waiting until next year on that?
Yeah, so yeah, that is something that Beta just did for the town. I also think that going forward, these funds would be used to further that, whether it be with Beta or another firm.
Okay, because we don't have the updated Beta information in our supplemental docs.
Okay.
So I'm going off 2019 documents.
Yeah.
At least what I see is dated 2019.
Okay.
And maybe there's a list, it looks like there's a replication of the list. But in any event,
I can
if
provide.
there is, all I would ask then is if there is new Beta data, if you would append the, either directly or if I may through Sue, append the file name so we have a date on it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Christie thought of his question.
Yeah, I was curious to know if we have some sort of requirements, or if we request some sort of warranty or quality control over the paving, or do we just let him pave and we just go with it? I just didn't know what kind of sort of quality control we have over, a subcontractor like that, just so we know we're getting, the best possible job, whether it's prep or it just seems like a lot of times we're just going over stuff, but I just didn't know if there was a system within that allows us to sort of keep an eye on quality.
Yeah, I think the annual paving contract it's a 1-year warranty, and now the real lifetime of pavement is 10 to 20 years. So there's not much to fall back on down the road, but that's why it's super critical when it's being installed that we know exactly what we're getting and that it's done the right way. So we do have a contract with environmental partners to oversee the paving work as well, like I had mentioned about the sidewalk work. So it includes material testing, on-site, compaction testing, and when it's being installed, and that gives us the confidence that the big dollars we're spending aren't wasted.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So the contract explicitly sets out the specs for the installation of the paving?
Howard?
Sorry,
No, just for the minutes.
is that right?
Drew?
I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you.
Does the contract lay out specifically the requirements for the paving
Yes.
work? Yeah.
Yep, and they submit prior to doing work they submit their proposed materials, and we make sure that they're aligned with the contract. And like I said, then there's on-site oversight during the paving efforts.
Thank you. Okay, great, thanks. And Drew, just for your reference, I'm looking at the supplemental information that I didn't see supplemental information with this particular request. So I looked to the road improvements maintenance island wide, which is a similar title. And that's what I was referring to.
Okay,
Just so you know, when I was talking about the 2019 data,
gotcha.
that's where it was.
Okay.
So we can get a supplement on that. That'd be wonderful, and maybe just spotlight that through Sue so we know to look it up. Next is multi-use paths.
Yeah, so similarly to the other two that we've discussed, obviously, the shared use paths, multi-use paths, bike paths, whatever you want to call them, need attention, and in some areas need improvement, either widening, repaving, safety improvements, etc. So the plan is to make sure that those are not forgotten about as well as part of our annual roadworks contract.
Okay. Questions or comments for Drew?
Just a comment.
Comment.
In our
Christie.
meeting, he did mention that nothing was spent last year. So
They ask every year, don't they, for that?
yeah,
I feel like
it's annual, I mean, obviously it's
You just get
balance is flexibility,
Yeah.
but just letting the committee know.
Yeah,
he still
Chris-
use that money.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Okay.
What is the leftover?
Wait, you
Howard
guys,
says,
sorry,
what is the
just-
leftover balance?
question is to the the little people on the TV, what is the leftover balance?
yeah. So the leftover balance from fiscal year 23 for multi-use paths was actually 210,000. I think the figure that Christie was referencing was the cobblestones. Cobblestones, I believe,
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry.
Went
Thank you.
untouched.
Yep,
Did you do LiDAR out
I
of that
stand
money?
corrected.
Okay, so Howard, you got your question answered? I guess the question I have is on that is, it goes back to capacity. Is it gonna be expended? Obviously you guys are doing the work, you're doing it in a meaningful and effective way, so on and so forth. It's not a question of that. It's a question of, is the money gonna be spent? Or are we at, if you've got a reserve, if you've got a balance, does it come out of this and then it gets squared off at the end of FY 25, zeroed out, and then we start over instead of, because I think what happens every year is there's a balance and then it rolls over to the next year. So basically, I guess it's really, I'm thinking out loud here, it really doesn't make a difference because the money isn't spent until it's spent. It's just appropriate. It's authorized through town meeting, but we're not incurring a cost on it, stating the obvious. It's just, to me, it seems like from the accounting perspective, get caught up and then ask for what you're going to spend. And then if you don't spend it, there's a small amount. If it's 10 or 15%, that's different than 60%. Because if it's 60%, then why do we keep asking for 60% more than we're going to spend? And that's to whoever Drew when I say little people, I'm just, you guys are up on the TV, that's all.
Melvin Marcos.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with that being said, I think that there's also opportunity if there is money left over to allow us to do bigger things, rather than always doing things kind of piecemeal. So that I kind of look at that as an opportunity, but I certainly understand that perspective from the financing side of it or accounting side.
And just a quick follow-up on it. I'm also looking at not just, just Drew, so you're aware, at least my philosophy on this, and I think some of the membership is, we're aware, probably you are, that there are complicated, high dollar capital requests coming, and it's going to be sooner rather than later. And I think we're just looking at trying to kind of tighten up where we can, and kind of go from there, because if we're asking for $1 million here, but we're only spending 400 from I think a psychological perspective, from a presentation perspective, both in all the different aspects of getting these things approved, it's that much more money, but we're not actually spending it. So that's just the background on my thought process, so you're aware of it for what it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that.
Sconset footbridge.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, we talked briefly, Cobble, but we didn't get into detail. Yeah, Cobble, please.
Yeah,
Just-
so this is the last quarter of the annual roadwork program. Obviously the historic and charming cobblestone streets downtown are a big part of Nantucket, but they don't come without much required maintenance. So there are a number of areas that we've already outlined in our capital program to be replaced this fiscal year and in fiscal year 25 and beyond. In a perfect world, we get to a point where we're quote unquote caught up, but the nature of cobblestones that they're always going to need maintenance. So I think we're trying to play catch up a little bit on some areas that have been neglected for a while. And maybe in the future, it's a smaller dollar amount to just do spot repairs and very pointed maintenance. And as we mentioned earlier, the fiscal year 23 balance, I believe, was entirely untouched. It's a round number of $525,000 even. So there's a good amount in that budget, but it does go pretty quickly based on the unit price and the sheer amount of work to be done.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Howard says 525,000 was the end of fiscal year balance for 2023. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Thanks.
I just did.
But that's
Yeah.
system.
I just wanted to see.
But then we can get rid of it.
Dan had
Right? Better, this is how I.
More the better.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Sorry, we had a little offline discussion going here. Okay, so now we're on to the Sconset footbridge.
This is a supplemental funding to finish the repairs to the Sconset footbridge. As most of you probably know, there was a lot of work done to the superstructure in recent years. So the decking and the railing and other stuff. This would be used to finalize a design and repair the footings at the base of the bridge.
Okay. Questions, comments? Drew, I guess just curiosity, what's the timing on this one?
So thankfully, it's not a major emergency. It is structurally sound, but it is one of those things we don't want to become an emergency. Obviously, from a historic perspective, when you're talking about the culture of Sconset, the footbridge is a big part of that. So, and obviously for safety reasons. So the goal would be to do the design and build this, by the end of fiscal year 25. It's not a major project in terms of impact to the community or timeline, but obviously for the reasons I mentioned, safety and because of what it represents in Sconset, it's a pretty important thing to do sooner rather than later.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Okay, thank you. Peter?
Real quick, so it's supplemental funding, always just try to get a handle on previously approved requests. So, I mean, looking back, this was $100,000 request for maybe fiscal year 21. It says completed. So is that the only previous work that's been performed on the footbridge?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so $100,000 has been done to date, and then this is a $400,000 request. So, I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of cost increases between now and then. I mean, would you say that this is a larger kind of undertaking with these footings than the work that's already been done on the footbridge?
Yeah, and a lot of work that has been done on the footbridge was done internally by the DPW's facilities department.
Okay, that wasn't reflected in that $100,000 prior approval.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Awesome, just trying to make sense of how the two kind of interrelate. So thank you.
Also, if I do misspeak on something that happened before my time, Greg or someone, feel free to jump in and save the day.
I did raise my hand just to make sure.
Greg, go ahead.
I did it right this time. Yeah, I just want to jump in. Drew got it correct. The $100,000 was for design. It was used for Vertex engineering. They helped design and help do a little bit short. The DPW did all the work this last time. We bid it out. the additional work that needs to be done, the actual real large engineering work that DPW cannot do internally. No response came back. We bid it out again, and it was double in price. And that's why we have the supplemental funding now in order to get it done.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, decommission the fire cisterns. This one for all morning.
Oh, there it is.
You love it.
So in working with Chuck Larson, he's been kind of spearheading this effort in terms of mapping the fire cisterns to the town's knowledge. And they pose a safety hazard. I've been living on island 6 years. I know over the years some of them have just opened up essentially under people's feet. So the intent is to expose those and fill them with flowable fill to reduce or to eliminate that safety issue.
All right, thoughts or comments?
Were you saying that you thought that you wanted them to be used as drains or something?
I was gonna jump in the end, but
I want to hear that.
Yeah, so I'm just, again, Drew, I think this is one where it, understanding that it could become a bigger project. I haven't, I'm kind of working blind here. I haven't seen these underground structures, if you will. I don't know if they're shallow, if they're wide, I don't really know anything about them, but the conception is there utility in terms of capital program committees reviewing these as an investment, and the other investments we look at, which is the stormwater runoff, in lining these either with a concrete element so that they can actually be holding water. So structurally, they've got the integrity on the sides and the top, but they're draining through the bottom or not. And so I would just suggest, again, on the backdrop of ever escalating and rapidly escalating costs, and stormwater now being a thing, thankfully, that we would just kind of look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely coordinate with the sewer department / stormwater enterprise fund as we get further along in this process. I don't believe that I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the fire cisterns. I haven't seen one with my own two eyes either. I don't know if there's really a way to use those as a benefit to the stormwater system, but we can certainly have that discussion and look into it. I think the intent of this is for safety's sake.
Yeah, no, I get that part. So I'm not looking for a white paper, but just to put it on the radar. Thank you. Anyone else comments or questions? There's no hands up. I've got to get in the habit of looking up there for hands. Let's see, we're down to Newtown Road improvements, supplemental funding.
Pleasant Street.
Pleasant Street.
Repave.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pleasant Street. Yeah, I've got that as an out here for somebody. Pleasant Street repaving Silver Domain, supplemental funding. There seems to be a theme here.
Yeah,
Funny.
Yeah.
nice to get away from it. Greg, do you want to speak to this one a little bit? I know you have a much greater history with this project than I do.
Sure. I was asked to step in the past year by Libby to help work with this project to fill the gap before Drew came along. So the initial estimate, which went to town meeting last year, I believe it was about $2 million, was made by EPG. EPG did just initial assessment. After doing 2 site visits, complete site visits, walking through with the disability committee, Mike Burns, the preservation planner specialist, and marking out along the highway, realized it's a much bigger project from Silver Street to Main to maintain the historical character of the roadway, save as many trees as possible. Yes, we had Dale, our arborist, with us, and replant trees and replace bricks and curbing exactly as they are. It's a bigger project than they had anticipated. So the quick analysis was it would be closer to a $5 million project. An additional. It should be did we put that in correctly? And Sue, I know I went back and forth with you on this one. It should be 5 million altogether, not 5 million supplemental, correct?
Correct.
So
So
I
we've
think
got
that,
$3
and
million.
that was completely my fault. When I was putting the figures together, I did send 5 million
Right
to
on the
Sue.
sheet.
I
But-
thought we lowered it to
anything.
3 yesterday in our meeting.
Yep.
I thought we did too. I guess I'm going off of an old sheet. I'm sorry. I'm looking
Whatever
at-
dollar amount you guys are recommending, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg said the confusion was Greg said 5, but he was talking about the total, not what the ask would be for.
Exactly.
55.
We already
So
have.
It
about
is
2 million.
reflected in Sue's updated table.
Okay. I
I
have
I
the old
printed
one.
that this morning.
My bad.
Okay.
Not sure if everyone on the committee has that. I did print it for Christy and Howard this morning, so.
Yeah, guys, so we have a $3 million ask in our information.
Right.
Perfect. Okay.
So
Thank you. Sorry.
we're all on the same page. No, it's good. Better to be clear up front. Questions, comments?
Having trouble finding this. What is this called?
Pleasant Street
Well,
repaving,
Silver to Main.
Silver
Pleasant
Street to Main.
You might search for TRAN-23-004, TRAN-23-004. And I'll actually, I'm gonna follow up on that. There's a couple of plum things here that we'll catch up on with Sue once we clear the department presentation.
So I don't have access to that probably because it's last year and I've only been accessing Roy since I joined, so.
You should have it. Sue, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, if you notice, there's 2 asterisks on the Pleasant Street repaving and Surfside. Those kind of just came up this week, so they are actually not in plum at the moment. In order to get them as supplemental funding, I have to have them cloned or re-enter them all in. So I'm waiting for the software developers to clone those for me, so then I can update it with the most recent information. So that's why you can't find them right now.
Got it. So with respect to our work process, make your notes, form your opinions, and keep those in mind for the Rorys. Sue will let us know when they've been cloned and uploaded. Sound fair, Sue? Thank you. Okay, guys, so Brooke, did you have a question other than just to note you didn't have access?
No, I don't.
Okay. Surfside area roads reconstruction.
All right. Yeah, so I think this project kind of a tale as old as time. It connects the airport road to Surfside and beyond through well, really connects through to the boulevard, and that was kind of the first phase of this a number of years ago. And so this project is Lovers Lane, Monahanta, and Orkawa. There is water main extension happening on those 3 roads starting on the 30th of this month. So our hope is we basically have 100% design from the designer GPI. We are still working with them, and there's some external things that need to get sorted out. But more so than anything else on this list, this is very close to being ready to go. The supplemental funding is, I'm sure, getting a little bit tiring when it comes to this project. The design was started in 2016. I know there's been a couple iterations of supplemental funding, and the intent and hope is that we finally get over the hump and make this happen. Whether we like the price tag or not, you know, we need to make this happen. The town took these roads; they were private. They took them for this with this intent. And then again, with the water main, I think there's no better time than now to piggyback on that effort. You know, for the abutters to put up with water main construction, and then if we come back in a couple of years and do the roadway construction, it's a tough way to go about it. I think we're better off kind of ripping the Band-Aid off and trying to do all of the things in this area at once, you know, water and then the roadway improvements. It's not just roadway improvements, there's drainage improvements, there's bike paths or multi-use paths. And it'll drastically, I think, transform, you know, that area from Old South Road to Surfside, especially as that as all of those roads, Lovers included, have become a lot more heavily traveled over the years. This ask also gets us, it gets us to a point where there's enough appropriated for the current construction cost estimate, which is based off of the annual, the fiscal year 24 annual contract with Victor. There's been talks of phasing it, and that may still happen. But if this money isn't appropriated, then we're going to be forced to phase it. My opinion is that if we do phase it, it's going to end up making it more costly in the end to do just Lovers and then Montahasset and then Orkawa, you know, however, whether it's 2 or 3 different phases. You know, I think that bidding it all at once is probably the best approach when it comes to cost effectiveness. You'll certainly get a lot of contractors other than Victor that are interested in this work. You know, that happens on sewer and water projects. People will come in and do the excavation work, they'll do drainage and all these other things, and Victor paves. So we see an opportunity to finally make it happen and do it as efficiently as we can. But based on the most recent cost estimate, additional funds will be needed.
Thank you. Jill?
Can you remind me, didn't we just approve at town meeting, was it $14 million?
Yeah, Greg, I just had that up, but
I
13
believe it was
million.
13.
Correct.
yeah, and when was that? 20.
This past town meeting,
Past town
2023.
meeting.
In May.
Yep.
So is that, so you know you need the 5 million supplemental because you had bids come back higher? Is that how that worked?
No, we have not bid the project. That's just based on the latest cost estimate and the newest paving contract with Victor Brandon Corporation.
Right, the previous estimate was based on the previous.
No, we lost you, Greg.
Greg, you there?
Paving contract, and
Here we go.
they'll know that it's gonna cost more.
Greg,
Oh, did I lose you?
sorry, if you could just repeat that comment. You froze for a moment.
Oh, good. I was just reiterating what Drew said, is the initial cost estimate that brought us to town meeting last year for the supplemental was based on the previous paving contract. And because we couldn't start right away, because we're still waiting for some easements, we're still waiting for a state permit, you know, the new calculation with the new paving rates and then just the new unit rates puts it that expensive, that much more.
It's almost 30% more.
That's exactly the number, 30%. Yep.
Yeah, like I said, we have what they were calling 100% design. It's probably more like a 98% final design. But I think the last appropriation was obviously an earlier iteration of the final layout and design plans. So things, you know, have evolved since then. So it's not just a cost thing, but from a design standpoint.
15 plus 5.
Can you remind me,
Yeah.
does this include the bike path
It does.
Yes,
on Orkawa, on Montahasset, and on Lovers?
Yes,
Yeah.
full length all the way. So this will be, yes, full length from Old South Road and Airport Road to the Boulevard.
And is Lovers Lane also gonna go on town water?
It is going on town water, yes.
yes.
They are, but because they're not going on sewer, right?
None of that is going on sewer, no.
Yeah, I thought Lovers looked at going on sewer at one point, but they're not doing that.
Not to my knowledge, no.
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Anyone else? Okay, so on these two, Pleasant Street, Silver and Surfside area, we're obviously gonna get supplemental information. We'll have an opportunity to discuss them a little bit further. If we need additional information, and of course, when we get to the point where we're having discussions, then we'll have more in-depth discussion as a group. Next up is Newtown Road improvements.
Similarly to the others,
No, out here.
Go ahead, Drew.
So Greg might be able to speak better to the history and previous appropriation and kind of how that cost was developed, but more recently, Environmental Partners has been working on a design and put together an updated cost estimate. And was the original appropriation 2 million, Greg, or
1 million.
1
actually.
million?
Yep. This,
So, yeah, so they've refined the design further and updated their cost estimate, and that's how we came up with the $2 million to be able to make that project a reality.
this is also a select board strategic plan request for it's the what do you call it, the mid-island connector. And after we did the walkthrough and realized the 2 utility poles have to be changed, and due to the varying width of the easements the town owns, we decided granite curbing would be the safest element there, so that adds on to the cost. Before, it wasn't going to be curbing.
Thanks, Craig. Any comments or questions this time? No. So, Greg, you addressed one of the comments I was going to make, which is granite curbing, at least on one side. I walked down that road. I'm not too concerned about myself. You know, I pay attention, but I've seen people texting and driving, and it's a heavily walked road. And I think that that granite curb, as on Hooper Farm Road, is just a real beneficial investment in life safety in that area because they're so heavily traveled. As a matter of fact, I was hit on Hooper Farm Road in my truck. Back-ended, somebody was texting. So it's definitely, people don't pay attention and they travel a little too fast. Along the lines of traveling too fast, I'm wondering, and Newtown Road, the entry from Hooper Farm to Newtown, is there going to be maybe some cutback on the curb there or any grade change in order to facilitate making the right-hand turn in as you're traveling towards the rotary? You make a right-hand turn onto Newtown. A lot of times vehicles get hung up on that area, so I just want to spotlight it. And if you don't have an answer at this moment, that's fine.
I might have an answer. I'm not exactly sure if this is exactly what you're asking for, but when we did the walkthrough with David Gray and others, because of specific, there's a drainage, there's a catch basin right there in the middle of the bike path. They talked about pushing that whole side back, rounding it, and then making the Hooper Farm Road bike path in line with each other, if that may make sense to what you're asking. But no granite curbing. There'll be granite curbing, no granite curbing on that side. It'll be on the other side of Newtown Road.
The rotary.
The rotary side, right?
No. Okay, yeah, that seems to address it. Thanks. Brooke, I'll pause. You want to go ahead? I didn't see your hand.
I just want to reiterate what you said, that this is a highly trafficked and it's a bike. I bike through there all the time. And this is a project that's long overdue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. Along those lines, guys, one of the things I noticed, and this is just input as it's not a capital program thing, but I'd ask you to take it to heart. As you're approaching the rotary from Hooper Farm, the ocean behind you, people tend to travel to the rotary at a very high rate of speed and then slow down right at the rotary. And I don't, I'm not a traffic planner, but I'm wondering if it could be looked at. I don't think it would affect the flow to put a stop sign at Newtown and Hooper, just in that one location as you're going to the rotary, because then people would slow down beforehand and would also help to prevent backup on Newtown Road. And if there aren't cars there, it won't back them up along Hooper Farm. I'm not really sure, but
Right where you.
one second, sorry. Or some type of traffic calming device in the roadway, like some cobbles or something, because what happens is you try to pull out of that intersection and you almost get clobbered every time, because in your mind, you think they're slowing down for the rotary, but they're not. So anyways, I just want to mention that. Jill?
Oh, I was just asking, you mean right there by where you turn in to go to the town building?
Yeah, if you make a right onto Newtown, if there were a stop sign there, people would slow down for the stop sign versus rushing to get to the rotary, and it throws your timing off when you're pulling out of there. It's kind of like with the electronic bikes in a way. Your mind is associating bicycles go to a certain speed, but they're going much faster. In this instance, you're sitting at that intersection and you think people are going to slow down for the rotary, but they don't until they slow down, but not dramatically, until they get another 30 feet up to the rotary, and then they kind of clamp down on the brakes.
I just wanna make sure I understand it. You wanna put a stop sign at Newtown,
No, I'm suggesting that it
or you put
be
it on Old South.
on Hooper Farm.
He's talking about right here,
Right here,
this intersection.
this end.
of
At
Newtown.
Newtown.
Not
She
the town
thinks,
building.
she thinks talking fairgrounds,
I
No,
think I'm like, what?
No.
this end.
The intersection, I thought I said of Hooper Farm in Newtown.
Mhm.
And I'm not suggesting there be a stop sign, I'm just asking that since we're doing work there. And in the interest of,
Do it
cost, we'll look at it
Yeah.
and see if there's a way to address the concern, because I'm just bringing it up. It's not something you're gonna see on the traffic counts. It's not something you're gonna see unless you sit at that intersection on a regular basis, that's all.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other comments or concerns? Okay. So we'll look to you guys through Sue to get us the supplemental on the Pleasant and Silver and the Surfside area roads. If we have any material questions, we'll follow up through Sue, and otherwise we'll review those in a little more greater detail when we sit down to do our recommendation. Okay, thank you for coming in, Drew. Great, it's good to have you aboard.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
Just one thing before we move off these. Sue, I don't think it's systemic. I did a quick look through. The Sconset footbridge, though, has just so you're aware, has Richard and many of last year's rankings. So it may be just they need to reset, but I wanted to make you aware of that while I was looking at it. On the Rory information.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, let's see. I did see when just again on the Rory stuff, Sue.
Mhm.
When I do a search, if I'm in the, well, we'll do a Rory, a 3-minute Rory refresher when we all start to do them, but, for some reason, the Old South Road Complete Street Improvements design is popping up. It's a 2026, but it's popping up under Capital Committee review. So I just want to make you aware of that. No big deal.
Can I say something? The reason for that is that originally was in FY 25. We just made the decision yesterday to move that out a year. So I have to move all the projects into capital program review for you guys to Rory, and I do that a week in advance. So that's why that one was moved out.
Okay, but just so to be clear, I'm seeing it in the Capital Committee review sort.
Right.
So just so you know it's there to be
Correct.
moved.
What I'm saying is originally it was planned to be a request for fiscal 25 that Drew was going to present today. So I moved it into capital review for you guys to be able to
Gotcha.
see. Unfortunately, I can't move it backwards without Plum doing it.
No, that's fine. I misunderstood you. That's great. You're on top of it. I just didn't want to have somebody start entering Rory information on it.
Gotcha.
Mistaking it for a different one. Okay, great. So that seems to wrap up our work on that group. Do we want to, while we have Drew here, to hit any of these out years? Many of them are repetitive. The Tom Nevers bike path construction is a big ticket number for next year, as is the Pleasant Street 5 Corners with a roundabout and Williams Lane. Do we want to have them just touch on those for us, or are we good for now? Good for now? Okay. All right, so we're gonna excuse you guys, and once again, thanks for coming in and helping us out.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, all.
Annual report and recommendations, work group updates, group met yesterday, and that was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Jeez,
Went on until this morning or this.
yeah, I felt like it. Covered what we needed to cover. Sue, basically what I presented to the group was the report, the appendix A and B as they come out of Plum, and what they will be doing in terms of text narrative changes. I covered that you provide and have provided and provide the tables, the summary tables that are in the first 2 pages of the report in a formatted presentation, and then they can load it into Microsoft Word, and that they would be responsible for formatting the report for consistency. We covered, just for the group, we covered footnoting. Got some, who's responsible for keeping track of things, what we footnote. And then Appendix C we covered, which is generated from the finance department, which is where we stand with open requests. And that was, the most of what we covered. We covered schedule, which is basically the first week of January. We start in earnest on that because funding sources have mostly been pinned down. And then as soon as they're pinned down, the rest of the report can be put together. If I missed anything from the report work group, or Sue, from your perspective, please jump in. Howard.
So the only thing I want to add is, since we're doing footnotes, Peter and I'm writing a lot of notes in the footnotes so that we can then edit and take out a lot of stuff, but at least it'll be there for memory.
Sure.
So this is not the footnotes, it's just a summary of the meeting. If you have any corrections, go in there. I think you can go into other people's.
Yeah.
I would say add them after the fact.
Or just
Don't
add it,
yours.
yeah, add it at the bottom. And we also said we should put our initials
Yeah.
next to, in front of the comments, so that we knew where it came from. So if you put something in there, I would be able to ask you what you meant.
Yeah, so if you want, so the footnote section is for things that would typically show up in the report, like some of the basic ones are AIP funding is 90% split, federal, 5% mass, things along those lines. That's an example of a footnote. Another example of a footnote would be DPW asked for 2 vehicles and we're making a recommendation for 3, and there's a cost difference. And the footnote would be that, for instance, I think last year, it wasn't DPW, but town manager advanced the request after the initial requests were input. And we're footnoting it because some people are looking at these numbers and they may be seeing information that's a little older. And then we're trying to answer questions before they get asked for the benefit of everyone's time. So those are footnote things. If you got any questions of footnote, please refer to the report. They're in there from last year. Comments are, if you want to add comments in terms of, things that we haven't looked at yet that we want to look at. I would use the give Noah a little bit of something to pay attention to today. I would use the the supplemental request for airport housing as an example, where if that were still on the table, we had asked for additional information. You as a member might put in there your initials and what your perception of what that information was, so that later on you could look back in the RORI itself and see what your thoughts were. It's just an example. It's not relevant to any meat on the table. I just wanted to give you an idea of what the comment sections are for. Brooke?
So I thought I heard somebody say that I would be able to see other people's written footnotes.
Yeah, so the footnote, basically,
But
2 things.
When
What?
when did they become accessible to me? I'm not seeing anything.
See it?
Yeah, so they will show up if you click on footnotes or comments in the left margin under a particular request. They are not populated yet because we hadn't met to discuss footnotes. We've had to date, the primary footnote would have been with the supplemental request for housing that's going to the special town meeting, which is to include a footnote that the overall amount, and that I think was it 100,000 or 1 million was being reappropriated. So there isn't a body of text to review yet, but when you want to see it, if you want to see it, or if you want to add to it, if you're not a member of the report work group, please use the comments button on the left margin. If you want to review it and see what other people have put in, you click the comments and it'll pop up in a little window, or it is a window. The last thing on that, there isn't really utility, and I think on a cost benefit analysis, it's not really worth creating separate views for individual members. So that they're kind of notes that are, individualized.
What was your note for the seasonal housing?
Sue, would you mind, if you have it handy, if not, we'll just get it at some point. The special town meeting, supplemental ask for, town admin for housing. It was a 1.1 reappropriation, was that?
Who won that?
Oh, you're muted, Sue. Sorry.
About that.
Thank you.
I have it open if you want me to share it quickly, the footnotes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Excuse me, the comments. Yeah, hang on one sec.
Oh,
Okay.
no, I'm not actually looking for comments from our side, but can you tell, because we did a test, a couple of us
So,
in that one, but what I'm wondering is, what is the reappropriation amount?
so there was 8.5 appropriated
Yeah,
and now it's to 11 million.
Right. One of them is, I think 1.1 is a reappropriation, and that's what I'm asking Sue, if she knows, one, the number, and two, the source.
I believe it is 1 million and we're asking for obviously we put the full amount in for 3.2, I believe. But 1 million is going to be an ask on town meeting to transfer to this.
I think,
So 2.7.
actually, I think
Okay.
1 million is from, they're transferring that already.
Right, it was appropriation.
Yeah, and
So
then now they're asking for
for
another
2.1,
I thought.
2.1. Okay, that's where I got the 0.1.
Right.
So Sue, just on that, while we have it in front of us, it'll save me emailing you, and if you have a question, I think if you wouldn't mind just sending Howard and Peter and CCing me the breakdown of the overall cost, and then the breakdown, including the 1 million, where it's gonna be transferred, or if it's being reappropriated, the accurate term and where it's coming from, what request that was.
8.5 plus 2.1,
Okay, cool, thanks.
10.6, and we needed to get to 11.
Guys, I'm gonna bring us back on this and we can follow up on, just for the group's time. So that was the annual report and recommendations work group update. Any other comments, thoughts, or questions? We can talk about dollar numbers, separately. Committee reports, anything, select board, FinCom, that Capcom might want to know about, you want to share? Good of the order.
Nothing at the moment.
Okay.
Good of the order, what was I supposed to ask?
Good of the order, we already covered in footnotes and comments.
Okay, great.
Date of next meeting is Thursday, October 26th, and that is 1 p.m. Sue and Brian will not be here. Sue, I mentioned to Brian earlier, if you guys would be so kind to email Peter and myself in the event that I'm not here, he is vice chair, the login information, anything necessary for us. I don't think we need directions, but we do need the username and password for the meeting, which meeting it is. I think there's a 1, 2, and 3 or something like that.
Yep.
That'd be great, and we appreciate it, and we hope everything works out.
We are meeting next Thursday.
We are, but Sue and Brian won't be available. And if there's nothing else, I'm gonna move us to the door and I'll
Just-
off with you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'm attending a housing summit on the Cape next Thursday. I'm hoping I'll be done in time for the meeting, but I may be late.
Okay, well, good luck with that, and thanks for giving us a heads up.
Motion to adjourn.
On Jill's motion to adjourn, Jill? Howard,
Second.
Peter,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Brooke, and I'm an aye. Thanks, everyone.
Before you jump, we're done then.
We're
You
done.
you can turn it off though.
I just wanted
You
you to
make
know
sure
that
it turns it off.
we really needed, we discussed to circulate phone numbers for everybody.
Oh, yeah,
So
so that's not.
but
part
we
of the
didn't want to
meeting
put it
stuff.
online and do that, so.
Yeah.
We can, you can put your numbers on a piece of paper, maybe on this, and then we can circulate it among the team, because like this morning, I wanted to call you. Yesterday I needed to call Steven and
Okay, sure, no, that's fine. I think I've texted you my number before though.
you did. That's how I got you.